the recording. So, is matter around us pure? We'll be talking about matter mainly based on what it is made up of. Okay, so chemical composition based on the chemical properties, the physical properties, all of that. So let's start. Just a moment. Open the document. So we'll do this chapter like relatively, like really quickly, because you guys also had a lot of practice in it. Wherever you're facing a little bit of difficulty, we'll spend some more time, extra time there. Is matter around us pure? Okay, so so we're talking about pure substances, elements, compounds, mixtures, all of the stuff. So I'll start off with the classification of matter itself first. I think in the textbook you'll be given this at the end, but I'll start it off right at the beginning, and then we'll take like each piece one by one. Okay. Just a moment. I need to connect this thing. Okay. So you have matter. So matter can be divided into, what are the different types of matter you can have?
Could you repeat what you said?
So depending on what it is made up of, either you can call it, like you can have matter that are pure substances, or you can have mixtures. Okay. So what is the difference between pure substances and mixtures? What are pure substances? What are mixtures? Yeah. Oh, who is the one with the dragon picture? Swayam, yeah. Go ahead. What are pure substances?
Ma'am, I was just asking, like, did you like do anything, like start anything?
No, we're just starting the chapter now.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Swan.
So pure substances are basically, as the name suggests, they're made up of only one constituent or only one substance.
Correct.
While, do I explain mixtures?
Yeah.
While mixture, again, as the name suggests, they're a mixture of two different constituents.
Yes, mixture of two different constituents, yes, or substances. Okay, so
Two or more, right?
Yeah, two or more, multiple, absolutely. So can anyone give examples of pure substances? Example of a pure substance? Is iron a pure substance, Ashka?
Ma'am, all elements. Can all elements be pure substance?
Absolutely, all elements, but can you give which elements they are? Like when I ask for examples, yeah, mention specific.
Diamond.
Diamond, yes.
Diamond, platinum, gold.
Platinum, yes. All the expensive ones, yeah, so I am going for.
Carbon.
Carbon, yes.
Sulfur.
Sulfur, absolutely, yes. Are you guys familiar with the symbols? What PT means, what AU means?
Yes, ma'am. PT means
Yes,
platinum, AU is gold,
Yes.
C is carbon, and
S
S
is?
is sulfur.
S is what?
Sulfur.
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 Sulfur, yes. Copper would be Cu.
Cu.
Yeah.
C.
Iron, yes, all the metals, materials, elements basically. What about carbon dioxide? Is that a pure substance?
No.
No,
No, ma'am. It's a mixture of carbon and oxygen.
Yeah.
That's where you need to be careful.
Ma'am, it is a pure because all, yeah, ma'am.
So
It's a bit-
carbon dioxide, it is made up of carbon and oxygen. But if I randomly take some coal and if I take an oxygen tank and then I mix both of them, will I get carbon dioxide? Like if I take a box, put some coal pieces in it and ensure the gas in this is just oxygen, can I say that I have carbon dioxide?
no, ma'am.
So what is special about carbon dioxide, even though it's made up of, yes, carbon and oxygen? So carbon dioxide is special because it is made up of carbon atoms and oxygen atoms, but they are chemically combined. Okay, so which leads to pure substances again being divided into two different types of substances. So one is elements. Elements you guys are familiar with. So all the examples that you've given, carbon, sulfur, copper, iron, diamond, platinum, they are all elements. And the other kind of pure substances are compounds.
Compounds.
Yeah. So compounds are made up of different types of atoms, but they are chemically combined in a fixed ratio. Oh, किसी का कुछ अलग ही कॉन्वर्सेशन चल रहा है.
So,
So
ma'am, that was like I copied it from someone else and I was sending it somewhere else. It came.
control C, control V हो गया. But pay attention here. So carbon dioxide is still a pure substance because it's chemically combined, like carbon and oxygen have to be combined chemically. मतलब उनके बीच में chemical bond form होना चाहिए, like ionic bond or covalent bond वैसे. And it needs to be in a fixed ratio. Like carbon dioxide हमेशा उसका formula CO2 ही है. Another gas, have you guys heard of this gas called carbon monoxide?
No, ma'am, somewhere.
Somewhere, like you've heard of carbon monoxide, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Carbon monoxide is also made up of carbon and oxygen. Iska formula hai CO. So what do you guys know about this gas carbon monoxide? Like where have you heard of it?
From the word carbon monoxide.
Huh. Do you guys watch like crime?
Ma'am, ma'am, I got it. Ma'am, it was I got it in detergents, ma'am. Ma'am, I remember.
Mein? Acha.
Ma'am, like as far as I remember, I heard it somewhere in CID, I guess. It is like a poisonous substance or something.
Correct. So
It's toxic.
yeah, so carbon monoxide is extremely poisonous. 10th May bio May, you'll have more details about how it harms the human body. So basically it, like you breathe in oxygen, right? So oxygen is taken to all parts of your body, but instead of oxygen, like even if there's a little bit of carbon monoxide, that will take oxygen's place, and because your cells are not getting oxygen, they're going to die off. So that's how it, in one sentence, how carbon monoxide is toxic. So it is also made up of carbon and oxygen, but carbon monoxide is different from carbon dioxide. So even though it's made up of the same things, they are two completely different substances because the way they are chemically combined, the way the carbon and oxygen are chemically combined, and the ratio also is completely different between both of these compounds. So even though compounds are made up of different types of atoms, one, they are chemically combined, and two, they should be combined in a fixed ratio. So these two define compounds. Okay. So any one part differs means वो compound ही like change हो जाए. So best example is carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. One is harmless, something that we ourselves produce. Carbon monoxide is very, very toxic. So even though they're made up of the same things, they are not the same things. They are completely different. One will kill us, one will not kill us. Okay, so these are all pure substances. Another example of pure substance, can anybody think of? Can anybody give an example?
Is pure water a pure substance?
Absolutely. Pure water, like distilled water, is just H2O. So it is made up of hydrogen, oxygen, chemically combined in this particular ratio. So that's a pure substance. Anybody? Samriddhi, can you think of any other pure substance?
Oxygen.
Oxygen, yes. So is that an element or is that a compound?
Element.
Very nice, correct. Oxygen is an element, exists as O2 gas. Or kya?
Ma'am, an element, hydrogen.
Hydrogen, yes, exists as H2 gas.
In compounds, I have any alloys like brass and.
They are not alloys are not compounds.
Ma'am, sorry, in pure substance.
So alloys are not pure substances also. So pure metals are pure substances, but when we talk about alloys, they have many multiple metals, right? So they are not pure. So we'll talk about them in mixtures.
Okay.
Sujal is asking about glass. Glass is so glass itself, I cannot put it under pure substances because glass itself is like a type of, like it has, so some glasses you have borosilicate glasses, like other glasses, like again colored glasses will have some other materials in them. Different types of glasses have different types of materials inside them. So I can't just put glass here, I need to be a little more specific.
Okay.
Audience is, yeah, glass.
Ma'am, and compounds, can we take table salt?
Table salt, very nice. That's a compound. Do you know the formula for table salt?
No, ma'am, I know that it's sodium chloride.
Absolutely. So sodium chloride, your table salt main this thing is sodium chloride. And uska formula hai, sodium is Na and chloride is Cl, NaCl. So that's the formula of that compound. Okay, so that's the compound. So yahan tak all of these are elements and yahan se these three are compounds. What are salts? Salts, only so many you have. You have magnesium chloride, MgCl2. Quite a bit of them. Okay. Now coming to mixtures. So mixtures, so since we talked about compounds already, so if you have multiple things and they're chemically combined, then they're compounds. But if they're not chemically combined, if they're just like existing together, then that's a mixture. Okay. So mixture, depending on how well it is mixed, you have two different types of mixtures. Can anybody, does anyone remember what the two types of mixtures are?
Heterogeneous and homogeneous.
Very nice, yes. So you have homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. Okay, so what do you mean by homogeneous and heterogeneous?
So in homogeneous mixture, the mixture is uniform and
Yes.
there's no clear boundaries of separation.
Correct.
But in heterogeneous, it's a non-uniform mixture with the boundaries clearly visible.
Correct. So it's non-uniform and you can clearly see, yes, absolutely. Clear boundaries. So do you know examples of homogeneous and heterogeneous mixtures, just to make it clearer?
Ma'am, for homogeneous air.
Air, absolutely. Air is one.
Ma'am, for heterogeneous, we could use sand or soil or something.
Oil, sand, yes.
For heterogeneous muddy water.
Muddy water, yes.
Ma'am, for heterogeneous, you can say oil and water also, right?
Mixture of oil and water, yes.
So can we, for homogeneous, can we see filtered tea?
Filtered tea is, it kind of looks homogeneous, but it's actually heterogeneous. So that forms under something called colloids. So that it is going to come in this chapter. Okay.
So can we also say that iced tea, ma'am, just lemon and water?
Lemon juice would be a solution, yes.
Ma'am, can
Sugar
lotion be counted as homogeneous?
lotion is, again, that also forms a colloid. So colloids are
Ma'am,
like
blood.
type. Blood is also a colloid, Swayam.
Okay.
So all your solutions, like when something is completely properly dissolved, so they are homogeneous. So solution in the sense your sugar solution, salt solution. If you mix like lemonade, that's a solution. Again, lemon juice, lemonade with pulp would come under homogeneous or heterogeneous.
Ma'am, for heterogeneous, can we take water and oil?
Yeah, I've put it here, no, Sujal? Oil,
Oh,
water.
okay.
But tell me one thing, orange juice or lemon juice, if I add pulp in it, will that be homogeneous or will that be heterogeneous?
Ma'am, can you repeat?
So if
Ma'am, I guess heterogeneous.
yes. So Swayam, I was asking if I take lemon juice or orange juice with pulp, like with that bits of orange, bits of lemon in it, will that be homogeneous or heterogeneous? So that was what I asked.
Oh, okay.
If you look at another example Aryan had brought up earlier, alloys are homogeneous mixtures. Brass, bronze, all of your alloys. Yeah.
Ma'am, even sanitizers would be considered as homogeneous mixtures, right?
Yes. Your hand sanitizers are absolutely homogeneous. You can't, the boundary is not visible, like it's a solution of things. Yes.
Ma'am, for heterogeneous, we can also take up a fruit basket.
What was that, Ashka? It was not clear at the end.
Like a fruit basket or
Fruit basket, yes. Fruit salad, bhel puri is heterogeneous. Yeah.
Ma'am, I have another doubt.
Hmm.
So, ma'am, I think wood is heterogeneous because
Wood is,
is wood.
yes, wood is
I
a
don't know.
heterogeneous mixture. Yes.
Okay.
Sujal is asking coconut water. Is that homogeneous or heterogeneous?
Ma'am, I think
Ma'am,
so.
for homogeneous.
Homogeneous, right?
Homogeneous, yes. So coconut water may the fruit sugars and all of those things are dissolved in water. So that's why, like, so simple. So homogeneous is uniform, like whatever part of the mixture you take, you're going to have the same, like if I take 3 grams of salt in 100 ml of water. So that 3 grams of salt is distributed throughout that 100 ml of water. So whether I take water from here or here or here, it's going to have the same quantity of salt if I compare them. And if I compare it to the total quantity of water, it's going to have the same, if it's like a 3% salt, whatever quantity of water I take, I'm going to get like that 3% of it is salt. So that is what is meant by uniform. It's like completely uniformly distributed. Okay. Heterogeneous is non-uniform. अगर कुछ heterogeneous है, तो if I take it from the top, कुछ अलग ही concentration होगा. If I take it from the bottom, कुछ अलग ही concentration होगा. So if I take it from top, like simple, someone was talking about tea, right? So if you mix tea, immediately if you drink it, like sure, it's uniform because you just mixed it. But if you leave it out after a while, you can see that some tea particles have like settled at the bottom. So that's why it is not heterogeneous, no? Like the distribution becomes uneven after a while. Muddy water, for example, ऊपर से लो तो it's not that muddy, but नीचे का पानी देखो तो it's going to be like really muddy. So it's not uniform. Okay. Yeah, Samriddhi, what's up?
Ma'am, actually, can you explain these both briefly, as I have not studied this in school, so I'm
Yeah.
a bit confused there.
Yeah. So I'll go over the whole table once again. Okay. So we'll just summarize the whole thing again. No clear boundaries. So when you mix a salt solution or sugar solution, can you see where the salt is in water or where the sugar is in water?
It settles at the bottom after some time.
Salt solution पूरा dissolve हो गया.
Ma'am, sugar solution.
Sugar solution, yeah. I'm not taking like 5-6 spoonfuls of sugar. I'm just taking like 1 spoonful of sugar, jitna dissolve ho sake, and I'm dissolving it पूरा. अगर extra लिया, अगर space नहीं है, तो it's going to dissolve, like settle at the bottom. But I'm taking how much ever can fit inside water. So can you, like, if I just showed you this glass of water, and can you tell me if it is like pure water or if it's like sugar water or if it's salt water or if it's ORS?
Ma'am, I guess it's pure water.
It is pure water, but would you be able to figure out if salt was dissolved in it just by looking?
No, ma'am.
No, right? So that's what, like, there's no clear boundaries as such. It is mixed, it'll be mixed throughout. So that's what it means by no clear boundaries. But in the case of a heterogeneous solution or mixtures, there will be clear boundaries between the different parts of the mixture. Like fruit salad is the best example. So if I give you a fruit salad, can you identify ki this is a papaya, this is an apple piece, this is a banana piece, this is like a melon piece, is it? Like, or like bhel puri, maybe you can figure out the different components, right? So that's what it means by having clear boundaries.
Ma'am, if you take your chutney, like let's say your coconut chutney, it will be considered heterogeneous. right?
Heterogeneous, yes. Okay. Milkshake. What do you guys think? Homogeneous or heterogeneous?
Homogeneous.
Homogeneous.
I think it's heterogeneous because we can see the boundary of separation of milk and chocolate or whatever flavor it is.
Absolutely. So anything to do with milk is usually heterogeneous. Okay. So you can absolutely figure out the boundary. It's not uniform. Yeah. Okay. So just a quick summary. So you have matter. Now, depending on what this matter is made up of, it can be divided into pure substances or mixtures. So if it is made up of all the same things, then they are called pure substances. But if they are made up of different things, like pure substances, you have only one kind of particle. Like it can be atom, it can be molecule, but you only have like one type of particle there. And mixtures may, you have different types of particles all mixed in together. Okay, so they're just existing together. They're just mixed together. They're not like chemically combined or anything. Okay. Now, within pure substances, if it happens to be atoms of the same type, then that's an element. So diamond is made up of only carbon. Coal is made up of only carbon. Platinum, you only have platinum atoms in there. Oxygen, even though you have oxygen molecule, maybe you only have oxygen atoms. So even each particle, if you take it apart, you'll only get one type of atoms. That's an element. If it is made up of molecules and then you get different types of atoms, then you get compounds. Okay, so compounds are pure substances that contain atoms of different types that are chemically combined in a fixed ratio. So अगर atom एक type का atom ही है, या तो it has only oxygen atoms, it has only hydrogen atoms, it has only iron atoms, that's an element. And if it is made up of different types of atoms chemically combined, then that forms a compound. Like carbon dioxide, if you take it apart, you'll only find carbon dioxide molecules, but har ek carbon dioxide molecule mein you have a carbon atom and oxygen atom. Water, it's a pure substance because water only contains H2O molecules. Like each circle is H2O molecule, but each H2O molecule is made up of hydrogen and oxygen, isliye that's a compound. Similarly, sodium chloride is only formed from sodium and chloride ions. Okay, so that's the thing about pure substances. Are you guys clear about the concept of pure substances? Any doubts?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. So Ani, Ashka, Samriddhi?
No,
Yes,
no
ma'am.
doubt.
No, ma'am.
Now coming to mixtures, they're made up of different particles. They're just mixed together. They are not chemically combined or anything. Okay, they're just like present at the same place. That's why it's a mixture. So mixtures, depending on how the particles are distributed, you get either homogeneous mixtures or heterogeneous mixtures. So if the particles, like the different particles, are all uniformly distributed, the distribution is uniform, such that there is no clear boundaries between the constituents, then that's a homogeneous mixture. So you can think of air. So air is made up of many different types of gases, but can you figure out कि ये वाला part में I only have oxygen, ये वाला part में I only have nitrogen? Like, can you figure out the distribution like that?
No.
No. So whatever part of air you take, you have the same 80% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, 1% carbon dioxide. Whether you take this much air from here, wherever you take, that distribution will remain the same, like 79%, 20%, 1%, 0.3%, all of that. Non-uniform mixture, like heterogeneous, if the distribution is not uniform, you're able to get a clear boundary between the particles that are making up the mixture, between the constituents. So that's a heterogeneous mixture. So you can think of soil. So if you just go to your garden, you can separate out the rocks and the mud and the clay, like maybe some dried leaves are there, things like that. Muddy water, you can clearly see the mud particles being suspended in water, right? Like you can see those tiny, tiny dots. The mixture of oil and water. Mixture of oil and water, you can clearly see a boundary between the oil drops and water, like they don't mix. That's why it's a mixture and it's a heterogeneous mixture. Alloys are solutions of solids. So if you take bronze, like Aryan has given an example, alloy is bronze. Now bronze, for example, is made up of copper and tin mainly. So whatever part of bronze you take, it is a uniform mixture of copper and tin. So you will find that specific, maybe 80% copper, 20% tin, or 95% copper, 5% tin. I don't know the exact distribution, but whatever part of bronze you take, it is completely uniformly distributed with these two metals.
I'm also stainless steel, right?
Stainless steel, like,
It's
yeah,
iron and carbon.
iron, carbon, and nickel and chromium. Yeah, it's four.
Yes, ma'am, chromium.
So all alloys are homogeneous. All these solutions like sugar solution, salt solution, like lemon juice, coconut water, something wherever something is dissolved in something, matlab, it's a homogeneous mixture. Sanitizer is also a solution, just that it's not a water-based solution, it's alcohol-based solution, but that's also a homogeneous mixture. Okay, so clear about homogeneous and heterogeneous mixtures?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Yes.
So these are like your basic different types of matter you have. Now within mixtures, apart from homogeneous, heterogeneous, you can also like this applies mainly to, actually can apply to a lot of things. Okay, so mixtures, depending on the size of the particles, this classification is there. Okay, so this classification is based on size of the particles. Okay, so one, you have true solution, then two, you have something called colloids, and three, you have something called suspensions. Okay, so this distribution is completely based on the size of the particles that you have. So when I say size of the particles, mixtures, you have one thing, and then let's say you're mixing something else within this one thing. So you have the red substance, and then you're dropping the blue substance in the red substance. Okay, so you're mixing blue in red. Now, depending on the size of the blue particles, you can divide it into, it can form either a true solution, or it can form colloids, or it can be a suspension. Okay, so out of these, colloid only is like the new term. The others are fairly, you can figure out what they are. So true solutions, you get true solutions from if the particles are extremely small. So if the particle size is less than, was it 100 nanometers, then you get something called a true solution. Do you guys know what a nanometer is?
Ma'am, it is a unit of measurement.
That is right. But like, is it like a really small one? Is it big measurement?
Ma'am, it is like less, like smaller
No,
than
small.
millimeter.
It's extremely small, yes. So just to give you guys info, so 1 nanometer is 10 raised to the power minus 9 meters. Okay, so to put this in context, 1 by 1000 cube. Okay, so if I convert this into millimeters, it's basically 10 raised to the power minus 6 millimeters. 1 millimeter, you guys are aware of, no? You're familiar with millimeter?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it visible?
1 centimeter is equals to 10 millimeter.
Like if you have a
Yes,
scale, you
ma'am.
can look at it. Itna chota sa hai na millimeter. Now, divide this millimeter into 1000 parts. Like 1 millimeter jo hai. Yeah. So you have 1 millimeter, right? Is it clear or is it blurry?
Ma'am, it is clear.
Okay. So 1 millimeter jo hai, divide this into like 1000 parts. So can you imagine how tiny it is?
Yeah, ma'am.
Now, each of that part, like when you divided it into 1000 parts, now take one part and divide that part into another 1000 parts. Okay.
Yeah.
That is how much 1 nanometer is. It's that tiny. So 1 nanometer is usually like the scale of atoms actually. Agar atom ka radius janna hai, so it's a few hundred nanometers. It's something like that. Like not few hundred, it's smaller than a nanometer slightly. But yeah, it's like the scale of your cells. Cells are like 100 or 1000 nanometers in that range. Yeah, is that tiny. Okay. So particles of that size form true solutions. Utna size hona chahiye to form true solutions. So true solutions mein kya ho raha hai na? So the best, so they are too tiny, so the particles cannot be seen by naked eye. Obviously, you can't see agar like salt solution banaya hai, so you can't see the salt particles that are dissolved in water. They're too tiny. So what's happening in true solution is that, like, let's take sugar solution ka hi example. If I take a glass of water, water may, what do you like? What is water made up of?
Like elements?
Like, is it atoms, molecules? So फिर कौन सा element, कौन सा molecule?
Hydrogen and oxygen atoms.
Yeah, hydrogen and oxygen.
Yeah, but what is the like basic particle of water? Is it element or is it compound?
Compound.
Compound. And compounds
Compound.
are made up of atoms or molecules?
Molecules.
Molecules is correct. So compounds are made up of molecules. क्योंकि वो molecule है, इसलिए वो compound बनता है. If I break that molecule, then that compound will no longer exist. Only because those molecules are there, that forms a compound. Okay. So water is made up of H2O molecules. Or water का physical state क्या है? Is it solid, liquid or gas?
Liquid.
Liquid, right? मतलब each water molecule के बीच में there'll be a tiny amount of space between all the water molecules. So when I'm putting sugar or salt or something else, that particle is basically occupying the space between these water molecules. Okay. Now, because true solution may these particles are so tiny, they can basically just occupy the space between the water molecules and, you know, घुस जाएंगे spaces में. They're so tiny that they can go inside the spaces, and that's why you can't see those individual particles. So that's what makes a true solution. Okay. Now, coming to colloids. So colloids ka particle size is greater than like 100 nanometers, definitely greater than like 1 nanometer, but still small enough that you can't see with the naked eye. Okay, so colloids may the particles are bigger than what you have in true solution, but still they're small enough that you can't see them. That is why colloids look homogeneous, they seem homogeneous. So let's call it, they feel like it's a homogeneous thing, but it's actually heterogeneous. Okay, so true solutions are completely proper homogeneous. They're completely uniformly distributed. They're actually heterogeneous. So example of colloid, when we talk about colloids, do you guys have buttermilk? Guys, tak?
No, ma'am.
No? Summer may,
Yes, ma'am.
I do.
Ma'am, I do have.
right? Okay. What about milk? All of you have milk? Have seen it? You put
Yeah.
cereal.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So milk is a colloid. Okay. So milk, so when you just take milk out, and if you had to classify it just by looking at it, would you put it in true solution, or would you call it like is it homogeneous or heterogeneous?
Like by seeing it,
Hmm.
Ma'am,
homogeneous.
Homogeneous.
Yeah, so it looks homogeneous, right? But milk, if you leave milk outside or in the fridge for like days and days and days, have you come across any spoiled milk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
What happens to milk when it spoils?
Ma'am, in Hindi we call it fata hua doodh.
Fata hua doodh, right? Yeah,
It separates itself, like there's a water substance and then there's some
correct.
weird.
It separates out. The keyword being separates out. The reason why it can separate out on its own is because it's a heterogeneous mixture. It is not uniformly distributed. So eventually it can be like a few weeks or a few months. The parts of the milk are going to separate out. The heavy ones are going to like settle down at the bottom. The lighter watery substances are going to rise up. So milk is actually a heterogeneous mixture. So it falls under colloids. So milk is a colloid. So within water, you have the fats and the proteins and the calcium and all the good stuff that's like basically suspended in it. So it's mixed up in it, and it forms a colloid. Okay. And the third thing is a suspension. So particles can be seen by they're formed from really big particles, and they're so big that they can be seen from the naked eye. Naked eye matlab, like you can see it without using any magnifying glass or a microscope or anything at all. Okay. So suspensions, would you call them homogeneous or heterogeneous?
Heterogeneous.
Yeah, heterogeneous.
Heterogeneous.
The proper heterogeneous. Okay. So example of suspension. So what do you think of when you talk about a suspension?
Oil.
Muddy water.
Muddy water, absolutely. Have you guys ever used chalk, like chalk piece?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Green board. So
Yes,
the
ma'am.
mixture of chalk in water is also a suspension. It doesn't dissolve.
Yes, ma'am. When you filter it, it has some residue left.
Absolutely.
And
That
can we use flour in water?
what
Wheat
was
flour kind of.
flour? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, flour and water is a suspension, yes. Those particles are like too big. Yeah.
Ma'am, tea leaves and water.
Tea leaves and water, yes. So tea may like it's partially a colloid, partially a suspension because there's like a lot of stuff mixed in tea. Yes. So the leaves themselves are suspensions, they settle down at the bottom. But the actual tea stuff, the stuff that gives it the brown color, that forms a colloid. And especially if you're having milk tea, then that's like a completely it's a colloid.
Ma'am, what would we consider seawater?
Which one?
Seawater.
Seawater. Seawater is a mixture of true solution and suspension.
Okay.
Nicely caught, Sujal. Like, Aryan, you wanna go get some tea?
Ma'am, I have tea in like 1 hour.
Ah, nice. Okay.
Ma'am, and the reason I'm saying this, ma'am, because today we had Mama class had a project, so we had to
Yes,
demonstrate
ma'am.
separation techniques. So, ma'am, I had picked tea leaves and tea powder, which is that's a
Oh, filtration kiya kya?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
the demonstration के लिए.
Nice. Nice.
And ma'am, even we have that project, so I have the topic of sublimation for it.
Sublimation. Oh, what did you use?
Ma'am, we haven't yet presented, but I am planning on using naphthalene balls.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good convenient thing.
We had magnetic separation and some other ones as well, which I don't remember right now.
Oh, so you have to like source magnets and
So
iron.
we have to present like 3 techniques.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
so yes, ma'am. So we our whole class has to pick three of the. There are like a lot of techniques, and each group has to pick 3 techniques. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
if
3
one group has
separate
already
techniques.
picked one technique, the other group can't do that same
Acha.
technique.
Okay.
And even in like we can't take the same quiz thing like
Yeah, ma'am. The form of assessment. So, ma'am, my group
yeah.
has, for example, if my group has taken Google Forms. The other group cannot take forms, and they have to do like quizzes or something like that.
Oh, the presentation also has to be completely different.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Nice.
So
Like
for
creative exercise you guys are getting.
yeah, we had magnetic separation and then decantation and all that. So for
Ah.
magnetic separation, I did not have anything at home. I
Yeah.
used marbles and I had iron nails kept in some corners. So I used that.
Nice. And what magnets did you use? Like the fridge magnet, or did you get some magnets?
My brother had some. He had it for his activity.
Oh,
So like the ones I got were not that powerful. The ones he had were like pretty good. So I used that.
that's good. Cool. Nice. Okay. All right. Coming back to this, colloids. Milk is a colloid. Yes. What about blood? Someone had brought up blood earlier, right? So blood is a true solution, colloid, or a suspension?
Ma'am, it should be colloid or suspension.
Colloid.
Colloid.
It is a colloid. So milk, blood. So all these things are colloids. Someone said lotion, like cream is a colloid. So lotion is a like face cream, shaving cream. These are colloids. Foam is a colloid. So you have all of these things. We were talking about seawater, right? Seawater is a mixture of like it's a true solution, also a suspension. So the saltiness of seawater, so that part of it is a true solution because the salts are dissolved in it. But the sandy part of it would be a suspension. So seawater has all kinds of different things, right? So some of it is just suspended in it, and some substances like salt and all are properly dissolved in it. Yeah, so salt solution, sugar solution, all these are true solution. Suspension, yes, we talked about muddy water, soil and water. Okay, so the main point of difference between these 3 types, true solution, colloids, and suspensions, is the particle size. If they're really tiny, it's a true solution. If they're like really big, it's a suspension. Somewhere in the middle, you get colloids. And only true solutions are homogeneous. The other two are actually heterogeneous. Colloids, again, because it falls in the middle, it's again like, it feels like it's homogeneous, but actually it's heterogeneous. True solution, we've discussed some examples. There are a few more properties which make, like, which bring about the difference between true solutions, what do you call it? Suspensions and colloids. One is their stability. So true solutions are properly stable. So what do you mean by stability? Like, what do you mean? What do you think I mean when I say true solutions are stable?
Ma'am, if the particles in the solution are settling down, then they are stable. But if they're not, no, ma'am, it's the opposite. Ma'am, if they're settling down, it's unstable. But if they're not, then they are stable.
Correct. Okay, so stability is कितना time तक वो solution जैसे ही रह सकता है. Like, how long can they stay without separating out? So if they can stay like really long as a solution, as a mixture, then they are really properly stable. So stable, they're not separating out. So like, even though there is gravity, they're not like settling down at the bottom. So that's why two solutions are properly stable. If you mix sugar and water, you can keep it like that forever and it will be sweet all the time. The sugar is not going to come out of it unless the water is evaporated. Suspensions are extremely unstable because just leave it, like give it like, I don't know, 2 hours or something, and then the mud is going to settle down at the bottom. So what is the separation technique you would use for muddy water?
Ma'am, filtration.
Filtration is one. What do you call the
Distillation?
separation? What? Distillation?
No,
Yeah.
sedimentation.
Yes. So sedimentation. So there's two words, there's sedimentation and there's decantation. What do you mean by sedimentation?
So when the particles of the mud particles, when they settle down, you
Yes.
can slowly transfer the water which is above to another container and
Yes.
separate the.
Correct. Absolutely. But what part of it is sedimentation and what part of it is decantation?
Ma'am, I have another doubt. Ma'am, can we separate muddy water using evaporation?
You can, absolutely you can, but that's just a really inefficient process. When you have filtration available, when you can get it immediately, why do you want to wait till all that water is evaporated off?
Yes, ma'am, but in filtration, ma'am, all the microorganisms, but they don't get filtered. But in evaporation, everything is, ma'am, pure.
Oh,
ma'am.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, so if you're like being specific about it, that you want to clear out everything, then yes. But if you want to separate out just the mud, then yeah, like only this thing is sufficient. Yeah.
Ma'am, when the particles settle down, it's sedimentation.
Yes.
When we transfer the water part of it to another container, it's decantation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this process, like, so it's based on the fact that suspensions are unstable. Unstable hai, isliye the particles settle down at the bottom. So this process of waiting for the particles to settle down, so this is called sedimentation. Or jo particle, the parts that have settled down, they are called sediments. And if you're taking only the top part of the water to use, like if you're carefully tilting it so that, you know, only the top half of the water, you collect the fresh water in a different container. So this process of collecting only the top part is called decantation. As half expecting Suhani to give this answer. She said that she'd worked on decantation.
Yes, ma'am, I was about to, but then Ashka said it, so I was like, okay, let me say it.
Okay. Yeah, so this part is decantation. And because suspensions are unstable, you can use this method to separate out the components. Can you use sedimentation and decantation for true solutions?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. What about colloids? Stable or unstable?
Ma'am, I don't think so. We can.
Ma'am, I'm a bit confused because you took blood as an example of colloids. So there is a method through which you can, like, make the blood, like, there's a method where you can separate the two components and then you can pour out the other. So I think we can, kind of.
So in order to separate out the components, they don't happen naturally. Like if you take a vial of blood, it is basically going to stay as blood only for at least, few days, weeks. It's going to take a really lot of time for it to be unstable. So we call colloids, they are fairly stable. You put them under stable only. Yeah. So the reason is that suspensions are unstable because in a matter of like if there's a lot of mud in a matter of minutes, but otherwise in a matter of like hours, it settles down. But colloids, it takes months and months for it to separate out. So they are basically stable only. The method, Suhani, you're talking about separating out the components of blood, you have to use a little bit of force to separate out the components of blood. Okay. So what you're doing is you're taking blood and then you're spinning it like really fast. So it's called centrifugation. So when you spin it really fast, the heavier components are basically what happens when you spin something really fast? Like what do you observe that happens when you spin something fast?
Whatever is lighter comes up.
Yeah, so this force applied in the outward direction, right? Like when you're spinning, you have
Yes,
like
ma'am.
centripetal force, centrifugal force. Yeah. So the centrifugal force acting on towards the outside when you're spinning things. So the force on the lighter particles is greater and the force on the heavier particles is lighter. So like different amounts of force act on them. That's why the heavier and lighter particles basically separate out. And that's how the components of blood are separated out. That's how you can separate the components of milk also. Do you know where cream and butter and all of these things come from milk? You know how you can get that from milk?
Ma'am, so when we leave milk in like for a couple of days, then ma'am, we can see that the lumps are being formed and we can see curd.
That is like you're breaking the milk. That's how you get paneer. I'm talking
Oh,
about cream.
ma'am, ma'am centrifugation.
So cream is basically so what you do is cream like basically like jo malai form hota hai na, so you take those parts of milk, the malai from milk, so that's like your cream. Now getting butter from it, so you take you reduce, so basically the reason why you're taking malai from milk is you want to reduce the water quantity that is there from milk. So you're taking more of the protein and the fats from it. And what you're doing is, I'm just curious, like have any of you made ghee at home? Have your parents made ghee at home? Or
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, my nanny makes it.
your nani makes it? Okay, Ashka also has seen ghee being made. Do you guys know what the process is? Do you remember? Oh, Sujal is also aware of it. Okay, that's good.
Ma'am, I'm not sure. I never really went near it.
Okay.
because it smells really bad.
Oh, does
So
it?
just stay away.
Okay. Any of you know what is the process? Oh, they do it.
Butter. Yeah, they do it with butter. Like they melt it, I guess. Right?
लेकिन वो butter कहाँ से आ रहा है? Like, how do you get that butter?
So first, I think you convert that milk into cream or like butter or malai or whatever.
Malai.
And then you melt that and then you get ghee, I guess.
बीच में एक और step है. So when you collect all that cream, you collect all that malai, and then Sujal mentioned it. Yes, you churn it. So churning is basically you're separating out the water milk, like the watery parts, from the fatty parts. So the fatty parts are where you get the butter from, and the water is basically, either you can use it in making bread, roti or something, or you can throw it away. Yeah, so you separate it from the milk. So milk, in the process of making butter, you separate out the fatty part and this thing. So the fatty part, you heat it on the stove, you heat it, and then you get ghee from it. Yes, that is the overall process. So in order to separate out the watery part from the fatty part, so one step of it is you're waiting till it forms malai. Like malai doesn't really have, like you're reducing the water content first. Then you're taking only that malai and you're churning it. So when I was little, when I was in like 6th, 7th standard, I think my parents had done it for 1-2 years at home. And yeah, so they used to put it in the mixie itself. So spinning it at like a really fast speed separates out the water content from the fat content, and the fat part is what is used to make butter and ghee and all of that. The remaining water content, you guys must have come across recipes like buttermilk pancakes. So it is kind of sour, and that is usually used in making like breads and roti and things like that. That water can be used to do that. Yeah. But yeah, so centrifugation, churning. So that, oh, Sujal hates pancakes, so you wouldn't have an idea about it. So yeah, milk, blood. The reason why you would need to separate the components of blood is for medical purposes. Just checking if you're healthy. Do you have a good RBC count, white blood cell count, platelet count, all of that stuff? And what other things you might have in the blood? Cream, foam, all of these are different types of this thing. But yeah, stability is one. Another important property that separates out solutions, colloids, and suspensions is Tyndall effect. Any of you have heard of this word before? What do you mean by Tyndall effect?
How much the scattering of beam of light?
Yes, absolutely. That is right. So, Tyndall effect is a special thing that happens only in colloids. Oh, Sujal saying it happens in the evenings in clouds. It happens all the time, Sujal. Like it is the reason, like it's a different version of scattering, but like some similar things, like why the sky is blue. Yeah. Okay, but coming back to this is something that's observed only in colloids, and the base is like when a beam of light is passed through a solution. Okay, solution, I'm using it roughly. So it can be either a true solution or a colloid or a mixture. Okay. So basically what I'm doing is I am taking a glass of the solution and I am passing light through it, a beam of light through it. Okay. So abhi कोई भी solution नहीं है. Let me take this straw out. Otherwise, this is disturbing the whole thing. Can you figure out, like, do you see a clear beam of light passing through in this glass?
No, ma'am.
Yes, no. Like, can you trace, if I ask you to draw how light is passing,
No, ma'am.
can you trace? No, right? So usually when something is transparent, like that's what you would expect to happen. But in the case of colloids, you can clearly see a beam of light passing through. Yeah. So in the case of solution, when a beam of light is passed through, there is no scattering. Light is not scattered. So, you know, it just goes by undisturbed, and that's why you don't see any, you know, like light, any glow from the solution. There is no scattering of light when it is passed through a true solution. In the case of colloids, light is scattered. And this scattering of light is called Tyndall effect. Now, what do you mean by light is scattered? I should have prepared some soap solution to show you guys. Actually, it's 4:30, right? So I can do this. I can show you guys Tyndall effect in real life in a bit. Can you give me like 10 minutes? I'll quickly get the materials and I'll show you guys Tyndall effect, okay?
Yes.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, actually 4:40 I have like a meet. Ma'am, so can I leave?
Okay, all right, sure. Or should I do it after class and send you guys a recording or something?
Yes, ma'am, that will do.
So when you pass light, like when you pass a beam of light, the way I showed you this torch going through the glass, in the case of true solutions are also like transparent, just like pure water. That's why you won't observe any Tyndall effect at all. It's not scattered. Light will pass through the way it normally does. But in the case of colloids, the particles are slightly bigger, right? So when light passes through it, the light basically hits off of the particles and it's like reflected all over the place. So that's what we call, you know, the scattering of a beam of light. Oh, this is a very good image here. So in the case of a true solution, you can't really see the pathway of light. But in the case of colloids, you can clearly see how the light is passing. So the reason why colloids are able to scatter light is because the particles are big enough that when light hits them, it gets reflected in like all the directions. It doesn't happen in a true solution because the particles are so tiny that the light is just passing through undisturbed. Okay, so you guys have seen Tyndall effect in real life also. So this image here, the reason why you're able to see these light beams, so this is an example of Tyndall effect. Have you guys seen these light beams in like real life? Yes, Vayam.
Ma'am, when we open the door like in the morning, the light comes. So we can see the particles in air.
Yeah, you see those dust particles floating and you can see the beams of light, right? Yeah, so that's an example of Tyndall effect. Have you guys been to a cold place in winter, like where there's a lot of fog foggy mornings, foggy
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, in mist or in a foresty area,
forest
when it's
area. Yes,
dawn or in the morning, you can see the light
yeah.
on the
Not just
clearly.
that. When it's really foggy, have you seen a street light being on when there is a lot of fog?
Not really, but
Not
I can imagine.
So you like there is, if you have a street light and there is like beams of light like this, then it's like winter and it's really foggy. So that's another example of Tyndall effect. I'll see if I have like a photograph from winter. But yeah, so all of that is basically Tyndall effect, and it happens because the particles are scattering the light. So when light enters, it hits the particles and its direction is changing. So that's what we call scattering of light. So at the molecular level, if you were to see what's happening, and see if there's a good image of it. There's no representation here, right? I'll show you. So what's happening is that, let's say you have particles, right? So when a beam of light is passing through, it comes, hits these particles, goes here, then goes here, then goes here, then it's reflected here, then it's reflected here, it's reflected here. So because light is getting reflected in all the places before it can go out, you can see this like weird special glow, and this happens only in the colloid. In the case of a true solution, light is not scattered because the particles are so tiny that light can basically just pass by undisturbed. That's why you don't see any effect at all in the case of true solutions. So that's one way of figuring out if something is a true solution or if it's a colloid. Now, in the case of suspensions, can you guys predict what will happen? Can you observe Tyndall effect, yes or no?
Ma'am, if the particles are still not settled down, we can.
Yes. So in this case also, the particles are capable of, again, it depends on the size of the particles. If they are kind of small and they are still suspended, if they're not settled down, then they can scatter the light. But in some cases, particles, sometimes they just don't let light pass through if it's like a extremely muddy solution. So case by case basis, but more often than not, they can scatter light. Yeah. So these are the different types of solutions. And after this, you just have all the separation techniques. Do you want me to go over the different separation techniques?
Ma'am, I don't know, ma'am.
What happened? Aryan, you got muted.
Ma'am, I think, ma'am, we don't have that for exams. So, ma'am,
Yeah,
I
I
think yes.
thought so. Okay, we'll let it be for now. Oh yeah, there's one more part. So there's something called physical change and there's chemical change. What do you mean by physical change? What do you mean by chemical change?
Ma'am, in physical change, only the physical properties of a any substance has changed, while in chemical change, the chemical properties in the substance have changed.
Now, what do you mean by physical properties and chemical properties? What comes under physical properties? What comes under chemical properties?
So in physical properties, the appearance the texture, all of that is physical properties, while in chemical properties or ma'am, like
Its entire chemical composition.
yeah.
Yes, very nice. Very nicely put, you guys. So physical properties are things like the appearance. When we talk about appearance, it's mainly appearance in the sense the physical state, whether it's solid, liquid, or gas. Its color, whether it's hard or soft, like how is it to touch, things like that. Solubility is a physical property. Density again ties into like whether it's hard or soft. So these are the physical properties. So the chemical properties, it's the what it is made up of, like how it reacts. Basically how it reacts comes under the the chemical properties. Okay. Can you give some examples of a physical change?
Ma'am,
Melting of ice.
Melting of ice, yes. Aryan?
I'm breaking a stick.
Breaking a stick, absolutely. Its size got changed.
Molding a Play-Doh, like a clay.
Oh yeah. So
sheet.
again, that's the shape of it. That's again a physical property. Samriddhi, any example of physical change?
I can't think of it.
Sujal, yes, absolutely. That is a physical change. He says breaking of bones. Samriddhi, think of anything. Like you can think of things happening in your everyday life. Let's come back to naphthalene balls. Like naphthalene balls, they disappear after some time, right? So is that a physical change or chemical change?
Ma'am, I think physical change.
It is absolutely a physical change. Sublimation, only its states is changing. So that's a physical change. Chemical change, example?
Ma'am, burning of paper and
Burning of paper, yes.
Burning a candle.
Burning candle is an interesting example you've given, Suhani.
it's both.
It's both at the same time.
Yeah, it's-
Ma'am, can cooking be considered as chemical change?
Yes, absolutely. Cooking is a chemical change. So there's an important aspect of how to identify a physical change and a chemical change. Can you tell me how do you figure out if something is physical or something is chemical?
Physical changes are mostly reversible.
Yes, absolutely. So they're reversible. And chemical change?
But ma'am, sometimes they're not. Like when you tear paper, you can't exactly put them back together, right?
But you can put them back using physical means only. You don't have to spend energy in like doing it.
yeah, ma'am. So
Yeah.
we can glue it, or you can tie it. If you cut a rope, you can tie it back.
Yes.
But ma'am, cutting a tree, you cannot exactly stick a tree back to its place, right?
No, yeah, you can. I mean, there's this in biology last year we did a type of I forgot the name. If you take a root from
Called grafting.
yes, ma'am. And if you
Yes,
That
ma'am,
can-
grafting.
Yeah.
it
So
just grows.
That is
you tie it together and the tissues basically like heal back and
But I don't think it works on like big trees, right?
yeah, that is
Not
like
for
for
big trees.
small stems. But for if you take a trunk of a tree, you can't exactly tie it again and expect it to grow, right?
But like if you look at it at the molecular level, you just might be doing a chemical change because you're stopping all the chemical reactions that are like like the cells are constantly dividing and then you have the protoplasm there, you're like breaking all of that apart, right? That is the reason.
Mama, I have another doubt. Mama, is healing a chemical change or a physical change?
Which one?
I'm healing, Mama. Healing a
Healing.
wound. Yes, ma'am.
feeling like hot pain. Oh, that's a chemical change.
No, ma'am. Healing.
Healing from
Like
wound,
healing a wound.
that is
Yeah.
also a chemical change. Because there are chemical reactions taking place that are leading to, like formation of the proteins, formation of new cells over your wound. So everything in your chemical body is one constant chemical change. Even when you're tasting things, that's a chemical change, because the food particle is literally interacting with the taste buds on your tongue, and that is again sending a nerve signal to your brain. So it's like a whole thing.
Ma'am, pollution would be chemical change, right?
Pollution, like how pollutants are formed, is a chemical change, yes. How it affects, that's also a chemical change, yes, because acid rain is reacting with the, like the things that it's falling on. Yeah, pollution, as like parts of it is definitely like a chemical change. Yeah.
And even when you're just talking about water pollution, once the particles get mixed with water, you can't exactly remove it.
That
Just like that.
depends. Like if it's forming a solution, then it's a physical change only, right? Like it's just being dissolved in water. But once
Yeah.
the harmful effect of it, like once like a fish or a plant takes in that water, then it's going to affect some sort of a chemical change, because that's where the toxicity comes from. Like when that harmful substance interacts with your body, with a living thing.
So if they ask pollution or particular pollution, what are we supposed to write in that?
I like pollution is too broad. Physical change, chemical change, you can apply to very specific changes that are happening. Yeah. Like burning of a candle, you guys said it is both. Burning it is much simpler than pollution itself, yet it is complex enough that it has a physical change aspect to it and a chemical change aspect to it. Speaking of, we didn't discuss that in detail, right? So why is burning of a candle both physical and chemical? Why did you guys answer it like that?
Because first, ma'am, so in a candle there's wax and it's made of wax, and there's a cotton string or any string inside it. So, ma'am, so if you light the string, that's a chemical change. And so as the string burns down, the wax in the candle starts to melt. So melting is a physical change.
Absolutely.
Even the gas released is a chemical change.
Correct.
Yeah.
Some part, like the outside part of the wax, this part that is exposed to heat melts. So that's the physical change. But the wax that is taken up by the string, like the burning of the string, along with the wax that is absorbed here, that's where you're getting your CO2 and H2 and other gases from. So that burning process is the chemical change. Yeah. Yep, nice. All right, what else? Oh yeah, so another important point about physical and chemical change is that physical change may, the like energy is not lost or gained. Like energy is not like the energy changes, you can easily trace it back to the substance. So how do I put it? So you can say that energy changes do not happen. Like you don't find energy changes in physical change. No energy changes. Chemical change may, often there is some sort of energy change. Okay. So do you guys understand this point? Why physical change may we say there's no energy change, chemical change may there's energy changes? Or what do you mean by energy changes? Like, what does it stand for?
Ma'am, so in like chemical changes, there is energy that is emitted or like something like that.
Absolutely correct. Emitted or absorbed, yes. But melting or boiling is a physical change, right? And in order to boil a substance, I have to provide heat. But that's like energy change happening right there, right? So why is that not a physical change?
Because boiling can be reversible. Ma'am, the water lost, or it can be brought back into what liquid form.
But why did I say that there's no energy changes in physical change? That's an obvious energy change, no? So, Sujal, you want to give a try? You have an idea?
Ma'am, I was thinking about it, but then I cannot frame it right now.
Okay. So, the way you look at like the energy changes here stands for, in case of boiling, whatever heat I'm providing, it is going into either increasing the temperature of water, or I can see that liquid water has turned into steam. I can map it directly, like jitna heat de rahi ho, utna pani is changing, or that much temperature is changing. Right? Like there is a direct relation. Like I can see that energy is like whatever energy I've given, I'm getting that much back in the form of steam or hot water. But in the case of chemical change, the kind of energy changes that you see, it looks as if energy is coming out of nowhere. So burning of candle may, the main aspect about burning is that there's a lot of heat and light given out, right? So can you find the source of that heat and light? Like, can you find where it is taking that energy from? Are you getting it?
Can you repeat?
Like in case of boiling, when I'm heating the water, like if I see that the temperature of water is increasing or some amount of water has turned into steam, I can clearly map it to the fact that there is fire under that container, right? So whatever heat energy I'm providing to the container, to the water, that much temperature change or boiling is taking place. Right? If I give a lot of heat, then all of the water is going to boil off. If I give less heat, it's just going to increase temperature to some extent. I can directly connect that yahan pe jo bhi energy change ho raha hai, it is happening directly because of this heat. But in the case of chemical change, if you take burning only, for example, burning is, matlab, you're getting a lot of heat and light, right? Like that's what flame is. Like flame gives heat and light. You can just candlelight. Can you map that particular energy to something else? Like where is that energy coming from? So it kind of looks like I'm getting energy out of nowhere, right? It looks like that. In reality, that is what we call the energy changes occurring due to chemical reaction. So whatever heat and light is being produced, that's happening only because there is a reaction taking place. But that kind of energy change you won't find in physical change. If you find that something is getting heated, that's because you yourself gave the heat. But in this case, you don't have to do anything. As long as the reaction is taking place, then energy is automatically generated. It's coming from the chemical bonds itself. So that's why we say chemical change may the energy changes occur, and physical change may energy changes don't occur. So physical change is not accompanied by any sort of energy change, but chemical change में हमेशा कुछ ना कुछ energy change होता है. Energy is either given out, like in the form of this heat, or energy is absorbed, like what happens during cooking. Like cooking can happen only if you put it on a stove. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. Right? So that's what it means. Physical change में energy changes नहीं होते हैं, chemical change में energy changes होते हैं. That is the main point of difference. Is that clear? Like, make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ashka, Aryan, Samriddhi?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. So another major point, physical change में there is no new substance. And chemical change में हमेशा there's always a new substance being formed. Like even when ice is melting, H2O is same as H2O. But when there's, let's say, like stove pe gas is burning, then methane gas is changing into carbon dioxide and water. We've got like completely brand new substances there. Yeah. So that's the difference between physical changes and chemical changes. Okay. Cool. So